So first of all, I wanted to thank you all for your time this morning. You'll see why we appreciate your engagement so much as the presentation goes on. If you haven't already downloaded the app, I encourage you to please do so now. We are going to have a follow along scenario partway through the presentation to give you some hands-on experience using the app before it really matters. So you will find links to download the app at the website smokepoint.app. There's a link on the bottom of the slide here. You can just type that into your browser, and then that will take you to either the buttons on that page will take you to either the App Store for iPhones or the Play Store for Android phones. Just a heads up, I am recording this, so there's a question and answer period. Of course, I do encourage live questions if possible, depending on the number of participants. But of course, you have to be on your best behavior, as do I. Okay, so before we actually start on the main show, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Gabe. I am a resident of La Honda. I have been for the past 5 years. I have 10 years in emergency response under my belt and 20 years as a software engineer. So this app is a merging of those two passions. I was on corporate emergency response teams for 7 years, which is where the seed was planted in my brain. More recently, I've been with La Honda Fire for 3 years, and I'm also an EMT in California. So the objectives for today are to learn what SmokePoint is, to learn how to use it to help firefighters, and to become proficient at using SmokePoint as a member of the public. In order to do that, I'll be giving an introduction to the app and talking about the two core concepts, which are readings and incidents. I'll talk a little bit about incident privacy, and then we'll have a scenario where you can follow along with me as I demonstrate how to use the app. And then we'll talk about how to take high quality readings. And at the very end, I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of how firefighters make use of your contributions when we're trying to locate a fire. So SmokePoint is a mobile app for public use to help firefighters know what you're looking at when you see a fire. You help firefighters by showing us quite literally a picture of what you see and where you see it. I can't stress enough how much of a service you are doing the firefighters by providing this information. It is a much more efficient way of communicating the location and the condition of a fire to us directly. The app is currently in a pilot here on the coast and in the mountains, and we are actively training the public, that's you, and career and volunteer firefighters in the area. So the most important concept in the app is a thing called a reading. And a reading is a collection of a location, a direction like a compass heading, and a picture. In order to produce a reading, the app uses the GPS in your phone, the compass that is built into your phone, and the phone's camera. When you take a new reading, the information is sent up into the cloud, where it is stored and can optionally be distributed to other people. It's important to tell you that the GPS is only used while the app is open. So you're actively engaging with the SmokePoint app. And your location is only saved when you create a reading. So we're not storing, like a history of all the places that you've been. It's very, very few times that the app actually saves the location and writes it down anywhere. You should also know that your identity is anonymized. So we do attach the minimum amount of information that we need to attach to each reading. And that includes a randomly generated ID and the model of your phone. Otherwise, there's no information about who you are or what your habits are, or anything like that attached. This is the bare minimum that we need to be able to make use of your information. So the readings that you take are organized into collections that are called incidents. And each incident has a name that you can optionally assign to it. And that just helps you to identify, what it is. So smoke on Butano Ridge, or I'm not sure what it is. And under that, you've got each reading, the location, the heading, and a picture. By default, all of the incidents and readings that you create are private. That means that only you can read or edit the information in those readings. However, optionally, for specific incidents, you can choose to make one public. And I'll show you how to do this later on in the presentation. When you do make one public, what that does is it allows other users of the app, like the firefighters, to see your readings if they are nearby geographically. So that is, within about 50 miles or so of where the reading was created. And that's the mechanism by which you spotting a fire gets communicated to the firefighters. So with that done, let's go through a quick scenario. So here's the scenario. You're driving along on our mountain roads and you spot what you think is a smoke column, or a little bit of smoke coming up out of the trees, or you spot flames, which are a little bit more, obvious. What do you do? Well, the first and most critical step is that you call 911. It is always best to get us rolling to the general area as early as possible. The one exception to this rule is if you are in an area where you don't have cell service and you can't make that call, and driving to somewhere where there is service would mean you can no longer see the location of that smoke. If that happens, go through the steps to use the app, do so efficiently, and then drive and call 911. If you do use the app offline, it will cache that information on your phone. And as soon as you get to a location with service and you open the app up again, which is very important, it will synchronize that information to the cloud and make it available. So after you've called 911, you open SmokePoint up, and this is what we are going to do together now. So if you are joining along, I'd like you to go ahead and open SmokePoint. If it's your first time opening it, it's going to ask for permission to use the location. It will send you through a kind of onboarding slideshow. So try to get through all of that stuff. You can skip it if you want to. And then I'll give you a minute or two to get that over with. And then I'm going to present the screen on my phone. And together we're going to go through the steps of creating a public reading. Just so you know, I do have a time where we're going to have a chance to have questions. So please cache those questions away in your head, and we should have plenty of time to answer questions. Okay. So I apologize if you still need a bit more time. I'll try to go slowly so that you can catch up if you fall behind. So this screen that you see here is what will happen if you create a lot of incidents. So all the incidents that you create here will show up in a list. Your screen, if it's the first time that you use the app, will probably have a placeholder and encourage you to hit the new incident button. So that's exactly what we are going to do. So we're driving along, we see this smoke, we call 911, and then we want to make this high quality information available to the responders. So the first step is going to be to create a new incident. And that is done by pressing the new incident button at the bottom of the screen. You can optionally give it a name, or if you want to move things along quickly, you can pick one of the pre-made names, which are always the current date and then, fire, smoke, or other. So I'm just going to choose the smoke one. By tapping on it, it's going to populate the name field. The name here is really just for you, so it doesn't matter really what you put in at this stage. The next important step is to choose Make Public and toggle that slider. So I'm going to just tap on the slider and it will toggle to public. If you forget to do this, you can come back and do it later, and I'll show you how to do that. So the next step then is to press the continue button. And it will take you to this map overview, zeroed in on where you are. You can see in the top right of the map, there's a small indicator in red that says this is a public incident. And that's a reminder to you that all of the readings that you take are going to be viewable by other people, including the firefighters. Now, if you want to change that at any time, or you don't see that indicator, but you expect it to be there, you can tap on the menu button in the top right. It's these 3 dots. And that pulls up the same screen that you saw when you created the incident. And you can toggle the incident private or public from here. Okay. So at this point, you have an incident created, but it is empty. It doesn't have any information attached. So it's not doing a whole lot of good quite yet. So the next step is to take a reading. And the way that you do that is on the bottom right, there is a plus button. If you tap that plus button, it'll pop up an additional menu. And the one in bold, take reading, that's the button that you want to press. So you tap on the camera there that has the plus icon next to it. And that will take you to the reading view. So if you have your phone held flat, kind of like it's on a table, you will see this map view. And that red line indicates the direction that your phone believes you are pointing. And I say believes you are pointing, I'll explain why I use that terminology later. We're going to go over compass calibration and how to obtain a quality compass heading. So just know that there's a reminder button here on the bottom that will guide you through the steps to calibrate your compass. Okay, so if my device is held flat, I'll see a map. If you simply raise the device vertically, like you would a camera, it will change to camera view. Now, if it's your first time, it might ask you for permission to use the camera. Of course, you should hit yes, because that's the whole point of this app. So at this point, I can move the camera around, and on the bottom left, you can see the heading changing as I rotate. It's really a point and shoot kind of thing here. Once I have the smoke in view, I can optionally zoom in and out by pinching like this. I can, spread my fingers apart to zoom in, or pinch them together to zoom out. This just kind of helps you get a more precise reading. So I'm going to point at this tree here. For all of you on Zoom, if you know where Alice's restaurant is, just try to point in the general direction of Alice's restaurant, and I'll show you how that all appears on my map. So I'm going to pick my target, right? You want to pick the base of the smoke column if possible, because that's where the fire is, right? If there's wind, it could be that there's smoke that is not geographically right above the fire. And we, of course, want to go to the location of the fire itself, not just the general area of smoke. If possible, that's what you want to do. If you can't do that for one reason or another, that's okay. It's still going to help a lot. Okay, so to take a reading, I'm going to hit the green check mark, and I'm all done. You can see on the map now, there's a reading currently, underneath the blue my location indicator, and there's a line, there's a ray projected outward that is the direction that I was facing. Now I can also tap on that reading and it shows me the camera image. So that's it. At this point, the reading that I have taken is available to firefighters and to other users of the app. And at the end of the presentation, I'm going to show you what firefighters actually see and how they use that information. You may have noticed actually that that the image that I have here is actually not of the tree I was pointing at, and the reason is because I moved my phone right after tapping that check mark. So it's pretty important to try to keep the phone still, just so that the image matches up with the direction that you're pointing. Okay, so you have all created readings. I can actually see that from my screen. And I'm going to jump back to the presentation briefly so that we can talk about the compass and how to ensure that you get a really high quality compass reading. Give me a moment while I find the presentation. All right, the presentation should be back on screen. If it's not, please let me know. What we're going to talk about next is getting a good reading. And this is really important, so please follow along. So the compasses that are in your phone are very sensitive to magnetic interference. Magnets, cars, anything with metal, such as certain phone cases that have metal built into them, these can all interfere with the compass accuracy. It's really critical that your compass be accurate so that we know that you're facing south, not north or east. That would really, change our strategy in a bad way. So it's really important that you get a rock solid reading with an accurate compass. Luckily, it's pretty easy to ensure that you do get an accurate reading, and I'm going to go through a number of steps to show you how that's done. So the first step is stay away from appliances and electronics. And if you're in or around a car, you're going to want to get out and walk at least 4 car lengths away. So you really want to have nothing around you. If you have a phone case that has metal in it, you can pop it off. These cases are not terribly common, but certain people definitely use them, and it does interfere. Once you've done these steps, the last important step is to go through the compass calibration movements. These movements can be done at any time with the app open. You don't have to be on the screen that has the reminder steps. It's really very straightforward, and I'm going to stop the screen share so that you can see my face and my phone, and I'm just going to walk you through how to do these steps. So all I'm going to do is hold the phone in my hand like this, and then I'm going to move it in a figure 8, just like that. The phone is in my hand the whole time. I do this 3 times, and through magic, the software on the phone is going to figure out how the magnetic readings relate to the orientation of the phone, and it makes the compass much more accurate. If you do all these steps, it's actually on recent iPhones, the compass readings are within a couple of degrees of accuracy, which is very good, and it is quite sufficient for what we are doing. So try to get into the habit, of that muscle memory of, okay, I'm going to step out of the car, I'm going to get away from appliances and electronics, I'm going to do that compass calibration movement, and then I'm going to go through the process of taking a reading. Okay, so at this point, we've got lots of time for questions, and then at the very end, I'll need no more than 5 minutes to show you how your readings appear for the firefighters. Please, so I will stop the presentation so that you can see me a bit better. And we do have quite a number of participants, so I think there's a raise my hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you could use that, I will call out your name and you can unmute once I call out your name. If you also have questions, you can put them in the chat and I can answer them there as well if you don't want to get on the air. So it looks like, Susan, you have your hand raised. You can go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. On the calibration, the first time it said that, I hit calibrate and it went to the, so I don't see that screen ever again then once that's done?
You do. So that screen is a reminder. The reason that it's so important that you do these steps every time is because the phone doesn't know when the compass is not calibrated. So I put that button there as a reminder to you to do the calibration steps. And just because it, can be kind of annoying, I made it go away if you saw that screen that time. The next time that you create a reading, it's going to pop up again every single time.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see, Eileen is next. We can't, if you could unmute and ask your question.
Okay, yeah, I'm Eileen. Gabe, thanks for this. It's a great presentation. You really are an excellent instructor and you've done a great job. Simple question on the settings. I see in the settings, there are all these different ways you can do this in decimal or English form. And what do we want precisely? Because you want everybody to use the same readings. You just want us to use default, or what should we use?
So the settings, right, the settings that you're talking about, they only affect the display of the latitude and longitude and of distances. That only affects you on your phone. The data is actually stored in a standard single format. And when it's downloaded to someone's phone, it shows them that data in the format that they, that they want. So if you want degrees, minutes, seconds, you can do that. Yeah, so I got a couple of questions over chat. Neil asks, is taking just one reading okay? Absolutely. Taking one reading is very, very helpful, because what that gives us is, okay, Neil was, standing on Haskins Hill facing due south, and here's a picture of what Neil saw. That already gives us so much information about where the fire is. If you do happen to be able to take another reading safely and without interfering with the response, go ahead and do it. Of course, it will help, but it is not critical. Let's see. I got more questions on chat, so I want to make sure I go through them. Are iPads with cellular service supported if they can run the latest iOS? Perhaps add a system requirement page. So iPads do technically work, but my experience with them is that the compass is not as good for some reason or another. So my recommendation currently is to stick with phones. You could certainly give it a shot, and the picture alone, it is useful. One of the reasons that we store the model of phone that is being used is because it allows us to make an in the field decision. How much should I trust this reading, right? If it's from an iPhone 12 and the person went through all the right steps, then we know this is this is probably pretty high quality, right? If it's a 10-year-old Android phone that cost $100, maybe we don't trust that one quite as much. So it allows us to make that determination. I got a request to demo the calibration again. That's no problem. It's this easy. I've got my phone in my hand, the app is open, screen is on. I do this 3 times, right? That's it. It's that simple. Okay. Can I update my reading location if I know where I am and the GPS is wrong? This is something that you are unlikely to encounter. The app stores the GPS accuracy, and that is determined by the GPS chip. And it's not often wrong. I am not aware of a time where that is wrong. So it could say that you are 200 meters or yards off to your left, but it will also store the GPS accuracy, and it shows us that information on the map. So that way we know, oh, the user was somewhere in this area, not precisely within this 6-foot square. So I would highly recommend that you do not manually edit the readings. You can, but I'd recommend that you don't do that, because generally speaking, the device is better at this than we are. Let's see. Okay, so there was a question about how is the incident data used. I'm going to show that after the question and answer period. I bought a regular compass to verify calibration because my iPhone 11 Pro kept giving varied readings. All were outside without interference. Okay, looks like that. I'm not sure what the question is in there, but if you want to explain, please go ahead and raise your hand. Eileen, I'm going to lower your hand so that other people can chime in. Let's see, any other questions?
Yeah, hey,
yes.
Gabe.
Hi.
I was a little bit hesitant to try the app because I didn't want to put it on the network. Eventually, I tried a private one. Is there a tutorial option or some way that people can play with it without tying up the firefighters with a bunch of noise?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this app, it's a tool, and you're welcome to use it for yourself as much as you want. It does have quite a lot more power than I'm showing you. I'm purposefully showing you the most important, most useful functionality for you to help, us find fires. It does a lot more than this, specifically the features that we then use to augment the information that you provide to help triangulate the actual location of the fire. And I'll demo a little bit of this just so that you can kind of get a sense. But to answer your question, is there a tutorial? The online documentation is minimal currently, mainly because I have put my time into making sure the app is the best it can be at this stage. And the only tutorial online is essentially a simplified version of this presentation that I've given. I do plan on adding more information online so that people can read about it instead of having me explain it. And that's in my best interest over the long term.
So if we keep it as private, then we can play with it as much as we want without
absolutely
your resources.
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. More questions? Cool. Excellent. So with the next few minutes, I will present my phone screen again, and I'll show you a view of what we're looking for when we're en route to a fire. Yeah, shared the wrong thing. Okay, let's try again. There we go. Okay, you should see my screen. So let's say you've called 911, fire department is dispatched, we're on our way, you open the app, you take a reading, and we're going to open the app en route. So, typically I would start a new incident for myself. I may or may not give it a name. I'm probably in a hurry, so let's just say I'm not going to give it a name yet. what we would do is turn on the map layer that shows public readings. So currently there are 26 public readings, and I can choose actually the radius that I want to use, as well as how long in the past to look for these readings, right? So we typically only care about things that have happened very recently, but we do have control over that. I'm gonna hit update map, and you see a lot of new readings, which is not surprising because there were 28 of you that did this. So let's imagine that I am en route to a fire, and I'm going to pick one of these somewhat arbitrarily because there are so many of them. Let's see here. Somewhat arbitrarily indeed. All right. I'm just going to pick this one here. So nice. So I get to see the target on my forehead, which I totally appreciate. This is so this is the picture that the person took. It includes the position and heading. And so what I would do is say, okay, yes, this looks like the, the information in here matches up with, the general area that the dispatcher told us. So I'm going to copy this reading to my incident. And just to get rid of all the extra noise, I'm going to turn off this layer. So now I've actually taken this reading and I've copied it to the incident that I am currently working on, right? So it's, so at this point, I've got a couple of options. One, it's already really useful. It gives us confidence to know that the area that we're responding to is the right general area. If that's all we get, that's already great. It's already a huge help. However, if we want to take advantage of some of the more powerful features of this app, we might actually take our own readings and get a triangulation using your reading and ours. And I'm not actually going to do that because I'm so close to the line here. It's not going to be a great demonstration. But the same basic idea is we have integrated the app with all of these wildfire cameras all across the West Coast. You can see there's a ton of them. So what we're looking for ideally is one of these cameras that also has the fire in view. This doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's very helpful, especially if we have one reading from you and we have one camera that can see it, which is often the case. So I'll demonstrate that real quick. I'm going to tap on this camera here. It's Jasper Ridge Biopreserve. And let's just, let's just use our imagination and say, okay, I'm going to, triangulate right on this point here. That's where I see the smoke off in the distance. And I'm going to hit add a reading. Now, what that does, since these two lines cross, is it gives me an estimated target position, and it gives me a kind of maximum search area. And the reason this is kind of an oblong shape is because the phone, we don't trust that as much as a fixed point camera that has hardware that knows exactly where it's pointing. So, but this is incredibly useful, right? I can zoom in here. I can say, oh, there's a fire road that might be good access. I can take a look at the kind of terrain. Is it wooded? Is it a field? That kind of stuff, right? I've got topographical lines on here, which gives me an idea of, am I going to be, trudging up a practically vertical hill, or, what are we in for? And then on the bottom of the screen, I have the target location, and it shows the direction from me to the target. I'm currently turning the phone to point to the target, and it shows me that it's about a mile from my location. Somebody asked about the format, the display of locations. One of the things you can actually do is anywhere where you see a latitude and longitude pair, you can tap on it and it will show you that same latitude and longitude in all these on all these different displays. Just in case you're communicating it to a person, you can, you can give it to them in a format that they like. So that's the basic idea here. The more readings that we attach, the better the estimation gets. And I'm actually currently working with a couple of particle physicists from SLAC who offered to apply their considerable knowledge to using lots of readings to get a really accurate pinpoint on the target, which is a pretty advanced math that I will be very honest, I cannot make heads or tails of yet. But it's extremely cool, and it will only improve over time. So that's everything that I had wanted to share, with one last exception, which is just a reminder of what you learned today. So we went over what smoke point is. I hope you now understand how you help us by using it, how you help the firefighters. You got some practice taking public readings, and I gave you a quick demo of how we make use of these readings, how your help actually is used in the field. If you have feedback or you find bugs in the app or you encounter problems, look for this icon. It's like a little chat thing with an eye in it. I've put that in the top right of, I think, every screen in the app. If you tap it, it will take you to a form. You can fill in your email address, which is important, and a description of what you've got going on. And that will get sent right to me. And I will chat with you about it. I see that someone raised their hand, but I'm not familiar enough with Zoom to. Okay, it looks like it's Ari Delay. Ari.
Can you hear me, Gabe?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you covered it before, but we could use two cameras alone, two phones alone, or a camera and a phone.
Your connection actually sounds like it's not very good, but I'll summarize.
Just really great. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Yeah, appreciate it. So we didn't catch absolutely everything because it sounds like you're in kind of a spotty area, but it sounded like what Ari wanted me to reiterate is that we can use two of the fixed point cameras, or we can use one of those and one reading from a phone, or we can use two readings off a phone, or any combination of these, or in the past, we've actually used like 4 readings on a phone and one of the cameras, and that's been quite helpful. So right, you can kind of mix and match, and that's extremely helpful to allow us to be sort of versatile in the field. So yeah, I appreciate that, Ari. Okay, so we've got one more hand raised, Barry Fitzgerald.
Yes, so just to clarify, you showed aiming the phone vertically at the fire and where you can see it in the crosshairs. Mm-hmm. Does it take a picture and send a picture off so you have a better idea of what the fire looks like?
Yes, that's exactly what it does. If you noticed, the public reading that I selected was a picture of my head with the crosshairs right on it, and I think I might have an idea of who took that picture. Yeah, so that allowed me to see on my phone what they wanted to show essentially. So we get to see what you see, which is a very powerful thing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is fantastic.
I appreciate
I've
that.
been waiting for somebody to come up with this in a long time. Every time I call up and call in a fire, because I'm in a position where I've got a lot of view, they always end up coming to my house because that's the procedure, and then they've got to go to the fire. So now I can send them in a better direction.
Exactly. Oh, I appreciate that. Looks like we've got Hillary next, I think.
Yeah, fabulous work. Thank you. That's great. I have a question. Do you or the other firefighters who have the app, do you get an alert when a new public incident is posted?
That's a good question. The answer is no, we do not. We are alerted of a fire by the 911 dispatching system, which is why it's so important that you use that. I've considered adding that as a feature, but I'm not sure if in actuality it would be as useful as we think, especially because people can use it to tinker around, and we might get false alerts, which really negates the purpose of that. So it's just important to stress that the alerting of a fire comes through 911 dispatch. Locating it with precision, that's where this app comes into play.
Thank you.
Of course. David Harrison.
Yeah, hi, it's actually his partner, Maura. I
Ah.
had a question about how you share, or do you share this information with Santa Cruz County Fire?
That's a good question. So currently the information is shared with other users of the app, and that includes San Mateo County firefighters. We are in the process of training as many of those as we can. It is definitely my intent to get more departments trained on how to use this. Currently, I haven't personally talked to anybody in Santa Cruz, but that doesn't mean they don't use it. But it is important to have both the public and the responders in the same area, trained, because otherwise that communication is only one-sided. So I'll certainly be working on that. This is the first season that we're using this, so we wanted to, first talk to the community, our community, and try to get this this thing launched.
Yeah, thanks. It looks wonderful. And I'm just wondering, because I do live off of Skyline, but I am in Santa Cruz County. If I use Smoke Point to identify a fire, called it into 911, would you then be able to help Santa Cruz County better pinpoint the location of the fire because you'd have it on Smoke Point?
Right. It's a good question. It would be difficult to do that because once an incident is started, unless we are actually part of it in terms of we're on the radio and we have an apparatus en route, the communication is, it's against protocol to get on the radio and start talking, essentially. So it's not something that we would do, and there's a good reason for that. But we will absolutely be spreading this app and trainings about it to more of the departments in the area. And of course, just to the south of us, it's the same mountain range, right? It's the same woods. So that's the obvious first candidate, I think, for expanding training.
Thank you.
Yeah. Susan.
Yes, thanks. How do I get to that overlay map? Again, I missed that.
The overlay of all the public readings?
You had on the map, you had a map that showed the camera and these red circles. I don't find that on mine.
Yeah, so when you create a new incident or you tap on an existing one that you have, it's going to take you to that screen by default.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other last minute questions? Hillary?
Yeah, one last question. When we call 911, would whoever answers 911, which I don't know who it is, we can say, I have logged it into Smoke Point.
That's a
right?
great question. So right now, the 911 dispatchers are not necessarily aware of this app. So it may or may not confuse them. Rest assured that if La Honda Fire is dispatched, we will absolutely be opening the app en route. And we'll be training all the other firefighters in the area to do the same thing. I can imagine a time in the future where the dispatchers would be aware of the app and its role. I think it would be more powerful, you know, especially if, for example, the dispatcher could instruct you or remind you to download the app, you know, as a secondary step. But we're not there yet. It's too early, and it's, you know, it's just not something that we've explored at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Okay, Naoko?
Yes. Hi, I just got the person who couldn't make it today, and then wanted to know how to access the recording later.
Yep.
So you may have mentioned how to do it, but yeah.
I actually haven't. I did mention that it would be recorded. I will be editing the recording today, and I'll post it on the internet. I'll send an email to the La Honda list with a link.
Oh,
It's
okay.
going to be on the La Honda Fire website as well, and the Smoke
Okay.
Point website. And I will send it out there. And then I have a kind of phone tree of people, if you will, an internet phone tree, to send it out to other email lists like the South Skyline and the Kings Mountain lists and any others. You know, I'm not sure all the places it'll go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pat.
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. I was just going to say that I will send it out to all the normal social media channels that received this announcement to begin with.
Excellent.
And one question for you, is CAL FIRE going to get trained on this?
Yes, CAL FIRE, the local CAL FIRE chiefs and firefighters are going to get training on this shortly. Yes. And eventually, I hope, you know, all of CAL FIRE, but I'm starting small. Okay. We got another couple of minutes before the meeting is technically over, so, or the presentation. Any last minute questions? Okay, I really appreciate everyone's time. This was really great and the turnout was awesome. If you do want to get in touch, there is a contact form on the website, and I will, yeah, I will, I'll get in touch.
And
Ari,
Gabe,
just,
when you say website, it's the lahondafire.org website.
you can do that, and I will see it. You can also use the Smoke Point website. The link is here on the slide. Yeah, you know, Ari had an idea, which I think is cool, to talk about a couple of instances where we've already used this app. So there's two I can think of that are pretty cool stories. So one is that so pretty early on, when the app was still in, you know, kind of a very, very early stage, in the fall, we used it to find a rekindle inside the CZU Lightning Complex fire. So we used at that point a combination of a fire camera, I think, on Allen Peak, and then several readings from us off of Haskins Hill. And we used that to identify the Butano Fire Road as the best access above the fire. And we ended up hiking in about mile to a mile and a quarter down some pretty nasty terrain. But the estimated location for the fire was within about 500 feet of the actual one. So that was pretty cool. That was before the app allowed the public to contribute. So another instance that really increased our confidence that this was the right idea was when we were dispatched to investigate a smoke column at dusk. And the dispatch location was 9000 Portola State Park Road, which, if you don't know, is the main office for the Portola Redwood State Park. It's in a valley. There is no visibility from there to anything at all. And we knew that that was not going to be an effective place to respond to. But this was about a week after we'd sent an email out to the community mailing list just to say, hey, this app exists, if you can, download it, here's a bit of information. And so we popped the app open, and there was a public reading from above Haskins Hill that showed us the direction that the person was looking, and it told us, oh, this fire is actually on the other side of Butano Ridge. And you could see that in the picture, and we could see that despite the fact that it was pretty late in the day. What we knew at that point was that thing that we see over the ridge, it's not a cloud. Even though it's pretty dark and you could totally mistake it for a cloud, it's not one because this person used the app. So we knew we were in the right place. We knew we were looking at the right thing, and that it was indeed the same smoke as this person observed. So that was just this spring. And that experience just reaffirmed that this is what we have to do. This is a great way to engage the community and to make the response a lot more efficient. Yeah. So I hope those help you understand the potential power of what we're doing here. Cindy raised their hand.
Yes, I just wanted to express my gratitude for what you've done and for making us feel safer, and also for all the work you did during the fires last summer. And having this group effort is amazing. And I really just want to thank you.
Well, we definitely appreciate that. That the work that happened last summer was the result of a tremendous number of people and a lot of different agencies. So it's definitely appreciated to hear that, and please thank all of them that you can, because that keeps us going. All right. Again, I appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go because we've been here for an hour, and I hope you have a good rest of your weekend.